Comrades, I am Admiral Andre, and welcome back to Kerbal's space program. I know I said in the previous video there would not be a video on Saturday, which is today by the time you see this. Unless, of course, you see this afterwards, which is also good. But guess what? There is one. Of course, if I get a chance, I will make a video. And in this case, it is specifically a continuation of our historical Sandbox campaign. So I have moved over the save into this game, the modern version now. This is version 1.4.2, but very soon we'll have 1.4.3. I think within the next week. So all the mods are going to break again very soon. Unfortunate, unavoidable, but always welcome because we're going to get some nice goodies now, including another launch site and airfield. So that will be very exciting. And of course, lots of bug fixes as well. At any rate, this is now with all the mods that you've seen with the Apollo Venus, but I've added the Holcam VDS mod as well, which is not updated for this version of the game. But I've done this because many of our craft are actually not going to work, or not going to be, how can I say, it's going to be deleted if we don't have the camera mods, because we put them on the craft and of course the game will recognize those parts don't exist anymore and wipe them out. Now the same is going to happen with the life support things, the, what's that mod called again? Good grief, now it's blank. Anyway, I'm thinking maybe I should install that again as well. But then again, we don't have any active crewed spacecraft in orbit at the moment. The station might get deleted, the mole that we still have in orbit, but of course it's space debris. So that's okay then. Let's leave the life support because we're not using life support in this episode. So start game. Resume saved, and there's of course the testing. That's the one I used to do the other recordings, but this is the YouTube Sandbox and it's been going for 4 years and 165 days. So let's load it up. I'm sure we're going to see some error messages. That's why I wanted to do this on camera, but let's find out. So yes, comrades, that's indeed what happened. The Gemini 4 debris was not loaded because that came from the Blue Dog Design Bureau mod, so obviously I don't have that installed anymore because we don't need it anymore. We have our own Gemini craft now, so okay. There's a lot more Blue Dog stuff that was deleted, another one, and the Hexcan life support, so the mole has now also been obliterated. It's now truly space debris, and Gemini 1 is also the same story, the life support, the debris again. Oh well, let's have a look at the tracking station. So currently we still have Sputnik 1 and 2, the OSO, of course the Solar Observatory, Syncom Thor Delta, I should just rename that to Syncom 1, and Pioneer 5, which is now floating aimlessly through the stars there, or at least in the solar system. But let's see what else. So yes, it's just pretty much that, and there's Syncom Thor Delta. Where's the OSO? It's much lower, I think. No, higher. Where is also? It's on an inclination, I think. Yes, there it is. So it's still making our solar observatories. Especially now, I'm sure they would be surprised the sun suddenly instantaneously changed its appearance, as did the whole planet. Oh well, more research is needed, comrades. So let's go to the VAB. So comrades, let's have a look at our timeline of space exploration. I find this one more useful than the timeline of the space race achievements because it's more comprehensive. At any rate, the next step we have to take, since we've done the orbital rendezvous in terms of the Gemini project, is of course the soft landing on another world. So this is a major milestone. This will be the Lunar 9 probe and the first photos from another world. Now of course to get those photos I'm installing the Holcam VDS mod again. It's not updated for the current version of the game, but I think it should still work. This is also better because our previous saves were all, well not all, some of them had these cameras installed. And without this mod, they will just be deleted automatically. So at any rate, we are now in February 1966. So let's have a look at this thing. Now here again, it's not always very easy to recreate these craft. If we have a look at the shape and all of that, and you see all the details here, the pipes and these things, it's very much impossible in Kerbal to recreate this. But again, that's not really the purpose of my playthrough here. But if we just have a look, this is of course the landing and descent stage here. So it has the main engine on the bottom and then these 4 smaller engines or nozzles on the sides. But the actual craft here, this is not the lander itself. This is just a thing to get it to the moon and land there, or at least slow it down. The actual lander is this spherical object on the top, right there. And what happens is the Lunar 9 slows down. We can actually read the thing here somewhere. So it was launched on a Molniya M rocket. Now again, I am reminded here, this will be the old Molniya that we built before the Making History came out. I still have to recreate that with the new parts. But let's see, liftoff and so on and so on. Now this was not going into an orbit around the moon. That is not an achievement that was made by that point yet. So what happens is the first 3 stages of the 4-stage carrier rocket injected the payload and the 4th stage into low Earth orbit. This was 168 by 290. Now again, I don't mind too much about recreating these things. But this is, of course, with an inclination. Now, actually, I'm thinking now we can launch this from the new Boomerang site, because that's obviously a first for us in this Sandbox campaign. And that will recreate this inclination to some extent. Again, I won't worry about matching it. The 4th stage, the block L, then fired to raise the perigee and to a new apogee approximately 500,000 kilometers before deploying Lunar 9 into a highly elliptical geocentric orbit. This is interesting, I didn't know this. The spacecraft then spun itself up to 0.67 RPM using nitrogen jets, mid-course correction, and there's a 48-second burn. And I suppose with that it then sent itself to the moon, because there's a bit of a gap here, because at this point it's in an elliptical orbit. Here it's saying it spun itself up, then there's a mid-course correction, but where's the burn to the moon? I assume that must be this. Then it approaches the moon, and then it orientates itself for the firing of its retro rocket. So it doesn't go into moon orbit, it skips that whole step. So then it triggers the jettison of the side modules, which I will not have though. Inflation of the airbags again, which we won't have. And the main engine or main retro rocket was turned off about 250 meters above the surface. And then the 4 outrigger engines that we saw there slowed the craft to the surface about 5 meters from the surface. Then it ejected this capsule on the top, so the rest of the thing then became space debris essentially, or moon debris. And then this thing jumps off the top and falls to the ground. It rolls around a little bit, but then it opens up like we saw with this image, the flowers of a petal again. Then the antennas deploy and all of that. So very interesting. The craft landed at 22 kilometers an hour, 6.1 meters per second, which is a very doable thing, of course, in KSP. This was in the Oceanus Procellarum, and of course we don't have such a thing. What is the Oceanus Procellarum? Let's just have a look at this. We might learn something. These ancient rift valleys, that's like we have. So that's the large mare in the center and upper left. So that area, I suppose. So it's almost like a giant crater. Although this is going to be, of course, that's a cooled lava area, not really necessarily a traditional crater. It's a lunar mare, of course. Basaltic flood, volcanic eruptions, and so on. But it's very difficult to sort of determine our landing site precisely, because we aren't in an orbit as we approach the moon. But maybe I'll try to land in one of the craters, the big ones. So let's see, what else can we learn? Sergei Korolev, of course, died before the launch. That was a big turning point for the Soviet space program. So, 250 seconds after landing in the Oceanus Procellarum, 4 petals which covered the top half of the spacecraft opened outward for increased stability. The television camera system began a photographic survey of the environment. This is why I want the camera mod. I think that's the only mod I'm going to add. Possibly again the life support one. I'm not convinced about that yet. Maybe I should for the Sandbox series. Although then I'll have to uninstall it each time for the other one. Oh well, very soon the mods are gonna break again because they're already saying the next update will come within a week, I think. That will fix the fairings and the legs and all of that. So, very happy news. And they even have a new base for us, a new launch site with an airfield. So, I'm very curious to learn where that will be. But that's really awesome. So let's see, yes, then it takes its images and all of that. Now, if we have a look at the actual lander again, this is the image, can you believe it, comrades? This is the image of the moon's surface. Well, I don't know if this was the first one, but at least it was taken by the first probe on the surface that made a soft landing. I can just imagine the excitement if you looked at these images. I'm not sure if the Soviets released these publicly, but I think they would have because it's part of their prestige. But I know it's so low quality, but it's an unbelievable achievement. So stunning. Now, I think the lander had solar panels on it. I saw that somewhere. I think it's part of Wikipedia if I'm not mistaken. Let me do a search. Doesn't have it. Doesn't have solar. Somewhere I know I saw that. Maybe if we have a look here. Probably, oh, there, of course, Kerbal Space Program. Now that's a proper mod there, which recreates the parts. I'm pretty convinced this thing had solar panels for some reason, because now I've gone ahead and put solar panels on it. Let me have a look here. Let me search for this. Now we're getting farming simulator and things. Solar views, power source. Now I'm sure I saw that. Lunar 9 had some small panels of solar cells, but its main power source was batteries, so it did have the panels. The question is now, were the panels on the lander or on the rest of the craft? Interesting. Let's cover the moon in solar panels. Now, it doesn't, I'm not sure, it's very difficult to tell from these images, but it kind of doesn't look like it has solar panels on the lander. This kind of throws me off. I'll have to fix that. But we saw clearly that its main power source was the batteries. Oh well, it's fine, I'll take that off. We can see here there's no solar panels, so it must be this stuff on the bottom of the craft. But then again, that doesn't look like solar panels either. Now, where would we see any kind of... That's always the thing with these older craft, especially the Soviet ones. Finding those specific details is not easy, if at all possible. Let's search for solar here again. Just says again, Lunar 9 had some small panels of solar cells. So, from that I'm sort of deducing the probe itself, because it says its main power source was batteries, recharging slowly by the small current available from the solar cells. And this is after touching down. The inner surface of the petals as reflectors. Oh well, it's a Kerbal interpretation anyway. So with that said, comrades, let's just have one final look at the thing. Right there. Now again, recreating that is not possible, but somewhat. So let's jump back into the game and have a look. Now here we are, comrades. Let's have a look under the utility. There's our cameras again. Of course these things are not bug-free, as we found out with our e-flyby, but for the purposes of taking a picture on the moon, that's going to be so awesome if we can recreate that, and of course it will be a nice thumbnail as well. So I've built this craft already. We can see now some of the things contain locked or invalid parts, especially the Gemini, and there you can see I was playing around with a dinosaur as well. We should do that at some point soon. I know this thing never flew in real life, but it would have probably flown by the 1960s, I think. But because I don't have that aircraft wings mod anymore, it's not working, but we can recreate that. The Mol, of course, doesn't work because it doesn't have the life support. Same with all the others. I even did the Lunar Gemini and the Centaur and all of that, but these were all just rough experiments. What we want now is Lunar 9, but specifically the Molniya one. That should work. R7 Molniya Lunar 9. This is the one. Now I built this a while ago, so I'm going to have to refresh myself. Okay, so there is our Molniya. Now obviously compared to the way the parts look now in the game, this looks very primitive and clunky and old, but this is the best I could do given the parts that we had in stock before. Now of course this one is a bit longer than the other R7s that we built previously because I wanted this to be a Molniya version, which I think is more like the which one again? The Soyuz. It's sort of in that kind of family, so it is much bigger than the other R7s. We can actually do a comparison here. Here's Saturn 1B. That's a boilerplate. That was before the new version of the game with the making history. There's Titan Centaur. Voskhod, the thing that I built previously in the episode. There's the doomed X-15 that killed Valentina. So much history here, you know. It's interesting. All the various Lunars. But let's just have a look. So I'm looking for... No, it's not the Voskhod 2. That's again invalid. It's because of the life support. I guess I'm just going to have to take Vostok 3. Just merge it. I just want to compare. So we can see... Is that not the same? It is actually the same. Oh well. It's fine. Actually no, this one has a slightly longer upper stage. But I guess that's the way it goes. We looked at that image before comparing all the R7 boosters, and the first stage generally looked the same anyway. But, you know, bit of creative license there again. In this case, of course, we're using the Rapier engines again, not the quad configuration of sparks like we started out with, and the spiders, of course. So after that we have the which engine is that again? The Thud, which I've moved into the center here, of course, before we had the new engines. I think this will work because I've done a test with that. It's a few kilonewton meters. I'm not sure if that is really a kilonewton meter. I want to still learn what this KNM is, but the torque, it gets less the closer we get to the S3, which is the landing stage. And then of course the last one. Oh well, I think it will work. In the test that I've done, it worked, so let's hope for the best. Now here's my attempt at the thing. Now again, bearing in mind this is with the old parts and this is not an exact recreation. So this is our block L that is going to send us to the moon, or at least like we saw now in a high elliptical orbit. So the center spark and two of the spiders for gimbal. Then we detach this thing, and then we have another spark as the engine for the Lunar 9. And then of course the Place Anywhere RCS for the, what did they call it? The outrigger engines. And of course I put two on the side so we can have some roll control as well. Then we get to the core where all those wires and pipes and things were. Now in my case I put an antenna here. There was one pointing down on the real Lunar 9 on the main craft, but then here for these side panel block things I just used these experiment storage units, which to be honest I've never really used before. That's something we need to experiment with. Then surface scanning modules and fuel cells and all sorts of things just to make it look a bit more, you know, usable. And then of course we get the actual lander, and that is in this case a shielded docking port, because of course that's what I'm going to use. That's the only thing that has these petals that open up. Now if I actually open the shield, we'll see there's a solar panel inside, but now I'm thinking let's keep the thing. They did say they have a solar panel. Now of course the interior here is not going to look like the real thing with a dome there and all of that, because we are limited by what we have. So close the shield. We of course only have 3 petals here, not 4 like the real thing, and therefore only 3 antennas, but it's close enough. Then we have the camera, of course. Now this is the very dirt cheap, poor nav cam, which is one of the most basic cams you can get. It's right there. It costs only 30 credits there, whereas the Hasselblad is 90. So this is a really terrible camera. The picture quality isn't great, and of course it's black and white just like the real thing. So with that we're hoping to get some nice images of the surface. Now in this case I had to put a reaction wheel in here. You can see it underneath the solar panel. The only reason I did that is because I can't guarantee that the thing is going to fall right side up when it lands on the moon, because the shape here is too round, but this is the flattest thing that I could get. I still want the rounded shape on the bottom because we saw it looked like that, and when it lands it sort of lies on its edge here. It doesn't lie flat straight up like we see now. But of course then it rolls, and I can't guarantee it's going to land pointing up. So I need a slight bit of a reaction control. We can say it's a gyroscope or something. Oh well. Or just that the center of mass is in the right place. In this case I think the center of mass is higher than it should be as well, which is why it rolls upside down. Anyway, that's it. Now in this case we are going to see the old R7 probably for the last time, which is kind of sad. But after this, when I build the new craft, of course I'll use the new parts as well. So that's it. Let's test this whole thing. So many engines. Okay, then that goes, then that goes. The way that the boosters separate here, I must be honest, I like better still my own custom separation than the new stock parts in Making History. Not the parts themselves, the way that they separate. Just the way it doesn't look so clean, you know. But in this case I can still pull it off, but the bigger these boosters get, the more difficult it becomes. But I'll show you that. Of course our ascent must be good. If we're too shallow, they're gonna also go haywire. Then that stage go, okay, we have that. Then the second stage, because we're high enough to dump the fairing, I think. Just checking. And then we do that. Okay. I'm not going to save this because it's already been saved. Then just check all the controls. So the only controls I have are custom 5 to activate the camera and custom 6 to deactivate it, just to make it easy. There's also custom 10 to toggle the shield and extend the antennas. So I'll of course upload this into the Dropbox. This will not be the same Dropbox that I use for the other craft like the Saturn V and all of that. So just be aware of that, but it will be in the description. And I will see you outside on the launch pad, comrades. Let's just go. That's not true. I have to revert now, unfortunately, because we want to launch from the other launch site, which I haven't done actually with this craft, so I'm not sure we'll be able to reach the moon, but I think we will. It's a very lovely morning here though. Man, these mods, why aren't they stock? I wish they were. Comrades, minor hiccup. We don't have the other launch site in this save, even though it is in the new version of the game. It's because, of course, the map and all of that was generated. I think there is some sort of procedural generation, at least, that happens with the other moons and planets and things. Not Kerbal itself, but I suppose there's a reason they can't load the other base, or at least launchpad, into the older saves of the game. You see, we don't even get a choice about where we want to launch. That tab is not even there. So we'll do it the old way, comrades. One way of dealing with this problem, perhaps, I'm just not sure when we will do that, if we will. Because partly I like the idea of continuing this old save, you know. But on the other hand, if we just take the craft and copy it into a new save, we can still use it with a new version of the game. But then all our old craft won't be in orbit anymore, and all our old debris and all of that. That's kind of what I like. I'm not sure what to do there. But for now we just launch conventionally. So comrades, here we are again. It seems to be quite a windy morning. It actually looks quite cold. These clouds give me quite a cold feeling, even though this is on the tropics, so we should hear ukulele music somewhere in the background. Hey, cue the music. While that's playing, let's have a look. Even though you see it doesn't quite fit, does it? It looks too cold. I think these clouds are what you find above the colder areas of the world. I'm not sure what you call these clouds. Sirius, cumulonimbus, I don't know, something of that nature. What I just want to have a look at is where is the moon at the moment? Because of course I want to land on this side here so we have a communication back to Kerbal, but it's hurled in darkness at the moment. By the time we get there though, this right side, or with this now, the eastern side will be lit, so we want to land here, maybe in the eastern crater, if I can pull that off. But I think it's okay to launch. So comrades, I will do the normal thing again. Okay, you can stop the music, and then I will speed this thing up as I did before traditionally. I think I'll even insert it into the elliptical orbit. I might come back to you again after that and then continue from there, or by the time we get to the moon. I'm not sure. But let's enjoy this launch and hope for the best again. I haven't launched this craft in a long time. Of course, that's the benefit of using a specific craft over and over and over for different payloads, because you learn the how would this now go? Idiosyncrasies. No. This puzzles me, comrades. How do you say this now? Idiosyncrasies. Yes, the idiosyncrasies of the craft, as you use it more and more, so you know when to do the gravity turn, all of that. Oh well, this is learning language with Admiral Andre. At any rate, so 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Comrades, okay, several things went a bit wrong on this launch, but we are here, 200 and something by 185, so kinda roughly how the Lunar 9 also entered into its orbit. However, the actual, well, let's have a look. The separation of the fairings actually broke off our antenna. It's missing now. That's something I'm going to have to fix before I upload the craft file. I don't think it's a mission fail, because we still have the antennas on the actual Lunar 9, which we can use in this case because they do have the range to reach Kerbal. But, you know, okay, it's less than optimal there. What was the other thing? The wobbling and the ascent trajectory was not very optimal. I should have done the gravity turn much earlier. That shows again, I've forgotten a lot about this craft. Anyway, let's see, where is the moon now? Just tilde key again. I think we're actually close to doing the burn. Almost again at the periapse, just like the real thing. Now in this case we want to set a collision course. But now I'm wondering. Let me open up that Wikipedia thing again. I'm confused by this thing. The block L then fired to raise the perigee to a new apogee. Okay, it's the other way around, but anyway, in our case we're firing to raise the apogee to a new apogee. Anyway, 500,000 before deploying the Lunar into a geocentric elliptical orbit. Then the craft itself did the rest, but at which point? That information is now missing. The reason I say that is because by the time we get out there, let's first of all just plot an impact. There's an impact. Now, if I shorten this and just put us into an elliptical orbit and I then burn out here, will that still give us the encounter? Yes, it will. Okay, that's fine. Just something I was wondering about. So let's push this as far as we can without actually encountering the moon. And then we can see this is a primitive probe core because it doesn't have lock to target there. And I suppose we could make that argument for the whole craft. So even though things go a little wrong here, it's par for the course because these were very experimental craft. This is... Stop fighting. This literally is the first soft lander on another world. So... And this of course takes the moon as a world, which it really is. It's uncharacteristically large for a moon. So that obviously means there's a lot of trial and error in this whole thing. And we know in the early history of the space race, but in general the space programs of different countries, there were lots of failures and suboptimal outcomes, as I like to call them. At any rate, let's fast forward and then place this thing onto its elliptical orbit. Just go around again. There goes something. You see, that's what I like about this. There will be so many pieces of debris. Maybe one day we'll even have an impact, which doesn't sound fun, but that is something I've never had experience of before. And just seeing our old craft floating around, the debris and the lost stages and all of that, it's just flavor, you know. So starting with a new map or new save, even though we still use the old craft, it's just gonna, feel a bit weird there. Lock to prograde, please. We can see there is too much of a wobble here. The mass is not centered. Ah, well... Let's just see if we can still make it. Oh, I should have dropped this stage before. Oh, that's probably why. Oh well, there's again another thing that shouldn't have happened. That stage should not have been reactivated. You see, this is much more stable. Oh well, this will definitely guarantee that we succeed, because now we have more fuel than I bargained for. Yes, much more stable. So we just wait now. Of course, this throws off our calculations a little bit because we have a weaker engine. Or engines. Roughly. Okay, stop right there. So we are on an elliptical course now. And I suppose at this point it would be okay to lose this stage. But no, this is not something I was planning on. I was planning on going straight there. Until now I just read that it first went into an elliptical orbit. Well, it's a slightly different interpretation of the mission. But I need that stage to slow us down before firing the main craft. If we just have a look at this, the current stage still, and I think these calculations are correct because they were for this version of the game where I built this. This gives us still 2.5 minutes, 800 meters, then that one gives us 1600. I think we could probably do without this stage then, the block L. Let's dump the thing. I'll just do an F5. Let's try it. This is new territory. And there she goes. And H, just use those outriggers and get us away from that thing. Now let's plan the thing. Doing it at the apoapse is not wise. It's not going to work, I think. And it's a 62 meter per second thing. Now again, this does not guarantee where we are going to crash. Even this doesn't help, because by the time the moon is over there, the crash is not going to be in the same place anymore. Or the landing, I shouldn't say crash. Good grief, that's not what we're going for. Ah well. Roughly, you know. In my case, I'll just be happy if we actually get a soft landing, never mind in a specific place. Although we could try and tweak it a little. Okay, roughly there. This is not too important. Just ignite that engine and set us on our course. Now we suddenly have a lot less fuel. That's not going to work then. Hey. That thing said 1600, but I guess, oh, of course it was the total. Oh well, I have, how much? 73 units of monopropellant, and like we saw, the outriggers are supposed to slow the craft for its final descent, and I did a test of that, and I know that actually works. They have a high enough thrust to weight ratio to actually slow us down. So then I'll use that. Otherwise it's F9. Let's fast forward. How are we doing? Uh-oh, electric charge. We need to send a signal to the craft to go into hibernation. If I can find the probe core. Where on earth? It's really difficult. I'm just going to have to say, aim the camera here. There it is. Hibernate in warp, please. Since we still have communication, we can tell it to do that. So now we fast forward without losing a lot of power. We're still losing a little, but not as much. Of course, I was also thinking, hey, we're actually close to the crater. Let's make a change. I was also thinking, because we now already have the Saturn V and the Saturn 1B and all of that, we can then just recreate those missions again for our campaign in this game. That should be fine. Because then at least we don't have to build the thing again. We've got it already. Then we'll do all the Apollos, you know. First test it in low Earth orbit and all of that. Or low Kerbal orbit. Oh, terrible. Let's go. What am I doing? But that's okay, I think, because the moon will still rotate within the next hour and 33 minutes. So now we're not in an orbit around the moon, although technically this is still an orbit. This would be... What would this be? What do you call this thing again? There's two different ones. It's not hypercolic. That's when the fuels burn on contact. Hyperbole? No, that's not quite right. Let me actually search this. Types of orbits. I know this, I'm just forgetting it now. It's not an elliptical orbit, it's one of those open... Oh, okay, it's a parabola or a hyperbola, but is that what you call them? It's a hyperbolic orbit or a parabolic orbit. So in this case, it's what? A parabolic orbit, I suppose. Because it's more of a curve, it's not flatter. This is a hyperbolic orbit. Okay, hyperbola. Not words we use frequently. So get closer now. This is very interesting. There's no craft on this moon here. We've never been up close before. Of course we've crashed on it, but that was not an intentional landing. Now we're coming at it at an angle here. So let's just project what's going to happen if we start our burn. That's okay. Now, the danger with this sort of direct ascent is, or at least, I don't know if all direct ascents skip the moon orbit. I don't think so. But in this case, it's truly a direct ascent. The danger here is, of course, igniting the retro engine too late and then crashing into the surface, which is not what we want. But at least here I get an estimation of the burn time with this better burn time mod. Let's keep it on the full retro. Let's turn that off. Right now I just want us to slow down. There, that's fine. I just want to land in that crater. I do not want to use more fuel than I have to, because we'll just pick up the speed again. Now, this is definitely not going to be enough, because we know for a fact we're going to be about 800 meters per second by the time we get closer to the moon, and we only have 750 delta V left. Okay, we're almost at that point. From that point on, we rely solely on monopropellant. So we know the burn is going to be 50 seconds and impact in 1:15, but we have to calculate the length of time it will take the outrigger engines to slow us down. Okay, in this case I will probably have to retract this antenna. So we will pretend we're programming the craft to do what it has to do, which they would have done anyway, I'm sure. Now, okay, so that at least is not going to blow up when we release the craft. Alright, so at this point the outcome is entirely unknown and unpredictable. But I'm going to stop yammering now and put on some nice moon-sounding music with lots of chimes and things, and then I will speak to you again when we know the outcome. Comrades, it's going to definitely be successful. We have slowed down more than enough, and we still have tons and tons of monopropellant. So about 5 meters before the actual landing, we are going to jettison the probe there. So we have to be around 6 meters per second or slower. Slower is better, of course. And then, of course, we don't care what happens to the lower stage anymore. Don't go up. Actually turned out perfectly like this in terms of fuel, at least. I just had to avoid the big crater. Although here we can see we're gonna roll down the hill anyway. Okay, 10 meters and... okay, we're centimeters now. Almost there. And trigger it. We are on the moon, comrades. We are on the moon. We have successfully done the soft landing. Now in this case, this is precisely why we want the reaction wheel. You see, it's definitely tending to land on its front instead of its back. So like this is good. Let's just pretend it's doing its thing now. I'm not putting any controls in. This is pretty much like a wheel now. It's like a top that keeps spinning. Alright, it's generally settling down, but I would like to have the camera... oh, it's very much tending to flip here. I'm gonna help it along. And just try and stop it there. Of course, with the camera facing the landscape. It's very, very tricky, this thing. Any slight move throws it completely around. So I have to be very judicious with my application of torque here. Okay, come on, just settle down now. Now we're really gonna roll down this hill. I hope not. Okay, SAS lock. Less than optimal. Okay, we're coming to a stop. Now I would like you to go that way and just stop moving. Tricky because of the surface here. Okay, you can just stop moving. Okay, fast forward. Just let it settle, first of all. Second of all, I needed to just roll the camera there. Now, of course, in real life, I could control the center of mass and all of that a lot better. Okay, I think we're pretty much settled down now. So, I'm going to open up, this is now key 0. Open up the thing with the antennas. And, of course, we do get a bit of solar power there. That's why we have a full battery now. And we are here. So now again, let's have this historic photograph. We see more of the craft, I think, than I would have liked. How is this possible? What is this thing here? It sits on the side of the craft, so it's very imperceptible what this is, but I suppose we can pretend it's part of the housing there. Of course, if I roll, we see it rolls with it, so that's a bug. Anyway, there's the lunar surface, or Munar surface, comrades. For the first time in Kerbal's history, we see what the surface of another planetary body looks like. So F1 that's going to be the thumbnail, of course. And F2 to get everything back, and then 6 to exit us out of there. Now we shouldn't have... oh, it's the thing here, of course. It's the petal that opened up. That's the thing that we were seeing there. Okay, never mind. That's not a bug. That's an unintended consequence. I should have put the camera up there so it's more in between the two petals. But that's fine. Then we see the craft as well. So comrades, that will do for this episode. In the next one, what is our task? I'm just exiting out again, looking back at that space timeline. The next one is the first impact into another planet, namely Venus, and that's Venera 3. Even though that was a fail technically because they didn't get any data back from Venera 3 of Venus, we're still gonna do that, and I've built it already, I think. So, yes, that's it, comrades. I hope you'll have a fantastic day, and may your weekend be an enjoyable one. Thank you as always for watching and for your support, and have a safe landing on the moon.